In our journey through Leviticus, we have traversed a terrain of sacred rhythm and moral order. We moved from the raw intimacy of sacrifice into the daily life of holiness. We stood at the altar of atonement, observed priests moving through the tent with precise reverence, and learned how impurity and renewal from the cycle of spiritual ecology form a cycle of spiritual ecology. In the previous chapter, we traced the calendar of divine appointments, the festivals of release, gratitude, and return, so that the year spun like a wheel within God's time. Now, in Leviticus 24, the lens narrows. We enter the tent itself, the beating heart of Israel's worship. The flame and the bread stands as quiet sentinels of covenant. But as the chapter unfolds, order is ruptured by a human voice that transgresses sacred boundaries. What begins with oil and flour ends with blasphemy and judgment. The shift is abrupt, intentional, and theologically profound. Before we begin, remember, the live reading of this chapter is available on Bible Building Podcast. While formerly I did the readings on camera, now these documentaries are devoted entirely to the deep dives. I encourage you to listen to the text first so that you can hear every word before joining this exploration, but you don't have to. This chapter opens with a command to tend the lamp. The Israelites are told to bring pure olive oil beaten for the light so that the flame might burn continually. The Hebrew phrase is na'er tamid. The term tamid suggests continuity, perpetuity, without interruption. Aaron, the priest, is instructed to keep this flame before the Lord from evening until morning, mirroring the rhythm of Genesis 1. Quote, "There was evening and there was morning, one day," unquote. Light pushes back darkness, not as a momentary flare, but as an unbroken testimony. The lampstand, the menorah, derives from the same root as or, light. In effect, the menorah is not mere furniture. It is a sign of ongoing presence. As Jacob Milgrom notes in his magisterial Leviticus commentary, the menorah is Israel's vocation in metal and flame. The contrast with Near Eastern temples is telling, whereas in those settings, temple lamps feed the gods with radiance. Here, Israel feeds the lamp to declare that God never ceases to see. Naked Bible Podcast and To Scripture Center, to Rabbinic tradition, especially in Talmud Manichot, recounts that the westernmost lamp burned longer than the rest, seen as a sign of the Shekinah, God's indwelling presence. Whether understood as a miracle or a metaphor, the idea is evocative. The priests did not light the lamp so that God could see, but so that Israel would remember that God sees. The flame becomes a parable of endurance. Holiness is not an annual spectacle, but a daily discipline. Beside the lamp comes another sacred task, setting the, quote, bread of the presence. Now in Hebrew, lechem, panim. Panim, literally faces, expresses relationship. Here or there is no abstract presence apart from the meeting of faces. The priests bake 12 loaves of fine flour, solet, and arrange them in 2 rows on a table of pure gold. Each Sabbath, fresh loaves replace the old. The prior week's loaves are eaten by Aaron and his sons in a holy place. These loaves are designated Kadosh or Kadesh Kadashim, most holy. Such a ritual is remarkable in its simplicity. Once a week, the sanctuary is renewed with bread. In other words, the ordinary becomes the medium of divine presence. The number 12 evokes the tribes. Each loaf signifies a family within the covenant. Ross Nichols observes that this ritual mirrors the manna that once fell from heaven. God fed Israel, now Israel offers sustenance back to God symbolically. In Leviticus, the rabbis liken the table of presence to the household table. Just as a meal unites kin, so the bread gathers the tribes before the Lord in sacred space. Now later, Christian readers perceived in the lechem panim a foreshadowing of the Eucharist, not as replacement, but as continuation. Both rituals evoke shared presence, God with humanity, humanity responding in thanksgiving. In Scripture, bread is never merely nourishment. It is covenantal. To live in relation with the divine is to eat together faithfully. If the chapter ended here, it might read as a serene liturgy. But then the tone shifts. The narrative breaks into the priestly calm. The text introduces a man, Shalat Divri, or Shlomit Bat Divri, of the tribe of Dan, born of an Israel mother and an Egyptian father. During a fight with another Israelite, this man, quote, pronounces the name and curses. The Hebrew phrase is Vayokov Shem Vayikalev, or Lev. Literally, he pierced the name and cursed. The verb nakev suggests piercing, making, or violation. To pierce the name is more than utterance. It is assault, a transgression of the sacred boundary around speech. The community's reaction halts the narrative. They detain the man until the will of the Lord can be revealed. This pause is pivotal. Even in outrage, justice in Leviticus is never impulsive. The priests await revelation. That divine instruction is severe. The witness lay hands on the offender's head, and the community is commanded to stone him outside the camp. The gesture of laying hands echoes sacrificial ritual, where the offerer transfers guilt or gratitude onto the animal. Here it reverses, with witnesses transfer impurity back to the transgressor. Execution outside the camp mirrors the Day of Atonement's expulsion of sin. One ritual purges impurity through substitution, the other through exclusion. The logic is clear. Holiness survives only through boundaries. Milgram insists that the penalty is not about revenge, but containment. The blasphemer has violated the foundational symbol of order, the name that undergirds speech. In Levitical cosmos, words do not float as abstractions. They participate in creation. The misuse of the divine name is to undo creation's coherence. Thus, the death penalty dramatizes the gravity of the breach. Now, BYU scholars, the archive there was some foreign naked Bible podcast. After the execution, the text broadens its scope. Whoever blasphemes the name must die. Whoever kills a human must die. Whoever kills an animal must make restitution. Whoever inflicts injury must suffer proportionally. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. This is lex talionis. To modern ears, it may sound excessive, but in context, it sets limits. The Torah prohibits disproportionate retaliation. By mid-rabbinic era, a gender reading emerged. In Baba Kama, sages ruled that eye for an eye means monetary compensation. Justice is restorative, not barbaric. Even in judgment, mercy shapes the law. The chapter closes, quote, you shall have one rule of the stranger and for the native. For I am the Lord your God. Gar is stranger. Ezrach is native. This inclusion transforms that could be a story of exclusion into proclamation of covenantal equality. The offender's mixed heritage is incidental. His speech is the offense. Israel's identity here is not genetic, but ethical. The chapter's literary design reinforces its theology. The opening commands about the light and bread frame the narrative of desecration and its aftermath. The arc moves from order to disorder and back to restored order. The structure mirrors the sanctuary itself: light, table, altar, veil. It's each boundary defining and protecting holiness. When speech violates that order, the story reconstructs equilibrium via law. The result is this subtle theological architecture linking ritual and moral gravity. In the archaeology of Israel's neighbors, we find temple lamps, tables, offerings, but none bear the moral weight Israel's do. Israel's rituals are ethical theater. The zayit, zakah, pure olive oil, signifies more than purity. It gestures toward the inner integrity. The sanctuary's light mirrors the conscience's light. The bread of presence evokes communal hospitality. Even the punishment of the blasphemer protects language itself. The reverence for the divine name Yahweh, spoken reverently as Adonai, is central in both Jewish and Christian traditions. Jews often substitute Hashem, the name, to avoid casual speaking Yahweh. Maimonides argued that guarding the name guards the mind from idolatry. When the name becomes trivial, God becomes manageable. And a manageable God is an idol. Christian prayer echoes this caution in hallowed be thy name. Holiness begins with speech. Words build or unravel the world. The contrast between lamp, bread, and blasphemy is intentional. The first to demand patient lending, oil replenished, loaves renewed. The last leaps spontaneously, a single act that undermines much care. Holiness is gradual. Desecration is instantaneous. The chapter functions as both warning and encouragement. Tend faithfully because the flame's endurance depends on ordinary faithfulness. Even the geography of exclusion, quote, outside the camp, is meaningful. Holiness radiates from the center outward. Profane or impure must move outward so the sacred core remains. But later interpretation transforms the image. The epistle to the Hebrews presents Jesus suffering outside the gate, reinterpreting exclusion as solidarity with the rejected. The political system seeks containment. The Christian vision presses the boundary outward, making exile itself a frontier of holiness. Both frameworks agree on the seriousness of speech and the stakes of community. At its heart, Leviticus 24 presents a paradox. The same mouth that blesses can curse. The same human's hands that trim the lamp can also cast stones. Holiness depends on attention. Every gesture, every word can tilt the balance. The near Talmudist must be trimmed continually. The lechem, panim must be baked weekly. The worship is the art of repetition, and so is moral life. Light, bread, and word, a triad of covenantal faith. The light proclaims divine vigilance, the bread divine sustenance, the word divine truth. When all of these falters, the fabric of the covenant unravels. To pierce the name is not just violation of rule, it is rebellion against the grammar of existence. Yet mercy resides even here. The deliberation before judgment, the insistence on equal law for native and stranger, the naming of the offender's mother, all humanize the scene. The Torah records tragedy without triumph. It is grief-aware holiness. In our age where speech is cheap and outrage abundant, Leviticus 24 feels curiously modern. The text teaches that words create moral space the way light defines physical space. To curse casually is to dim communal air, but to bless, to name rightly, is to keep the lamp burning. The sanctuary's near tamid finds its echo in conscience's lamp's continual lamp, the lechem panim in every act of hospitality, and reverent silence around the name reminds us mystery still envelopes all talk of God. This chapter, ancient and austere, becomes a meditation on maintenance. Holiness is not a peak experience. It is the patience of oil poured daily, bread replaced weekly, words chosen carefully. When we kindle our small lamps of kindness and guard our speech, we keep sanctuary alive in our world. Before we close, I want to let you know something exciting. Bible Building Podcast and Whole Bible Study documentary work, the work that we're doing here, we've been doing together. I am transitioning into a full podcast here on YouTube. You'll still get every chapter, every image, every bit of research you're used to, but now you'll be able to listen as well as watch. The teaching and commentary will live in the Bible Building podcasts, and the visuals will stay here as well. Same art, same depth. Just more time for me to shape the visuals and tell the story in the right way. From time to time, I'll also release bigger video projects, summaries of whole books, travel studies, maybe even a visit to Israel when the door opens. But week to week, everything will be centered right in the podcast for ease and clarity. You'll still hear my voice. You just won't always see me. The focus stays on where it belongs, on the word itself and the wisdom it gives you. Thank you for building with me. I'm grateful for every one of you, and I can't wait to share this next season together. Thank you for joining me for this reflection on Leviticus 24. May the light of wisdom and the peace burn continually within you as the near tamid burns before the presence. And we'll see you in the next chapter soon.